This lab will involve doing graphs, and we're going to do those by using Microsoft Excel. And again, this is the 2007 edition of Microsoft Office that has Microsoft Excel in it. We're going to do two different types of graphs, but you'll notice in Excel they call them charts. Same thing. And we're going to do a pie graph, and we're going to do a bar graph, or as Excel refers to it, a column graph. And what we're going to do is to display data using these graphs. And we're going to display the same data using two different types of graphs. The data that we are going to display is the number of AMAs, or the individuals or patients who left against medical advice from January through June of the year. We do it in this way because, again, if you display data in more of a picture form, it's easier to interpret, it's easier to view, to get the general idea a lot faster than having to read down through a narrative or a paragraph or a page to get this information. So the first thing you're going to do, and again, as I do the demonstrations, my data may not be exactly as yours is. You follow the instructions that you're given. But the first thing you're going to do is input your data, and you'll notice on this spreadsheet, and that's what we're doing, we're creating a spreadsheet in Excel, there's very little data. We're going to put the months, and then under each month, in the second row, we're going to put how many AMAs occurred for that particular month, or each particular month. And so that's the very first thing. Just go on and get your data in. And then let's look at our numbers. And again, yours may be totally different than this, but we input the number of AMAs. So now that we have our data in, we've completed our spreadsheet. And I want to point out, and many of you know this from CIS 146 or from using spreadsheets, if you look down at the very bottom of the page, you see Sheet 1, Sheet 2, Sheet 3. These are the different pages in your spreadsheet, and that will become very important in a minute because we're going to insert our graphs or charts as separate pages. And so the first thing we're going to do is I think in your instructions that you're going to do a pie graph first. And so in Excel 2007, to get the graph into the spreadsheet, you go to the Insert tab, and then all of the different types of charts are listed. And again, you'll hear me use the term graph. I use the term chart in Excel. And so the first one we said was going to be a pie graph, and then was specific on your instructions about doing it in 3D. So pie in 3D. And you'll notice it inserted it on top of the spreadsheet. Well, one thing in your instructions that you'll be told is to put your graphs or charts on separate sheets. We're going to move the chart to a separate sheet, and the way to do that is you'll notice on the Design tab, which will appear once you've created your chart or your graph, Move Chart. We click on that, and we're given a choice. Do we want it to be an object in the sheet, which it is now, or do we want to put it on a new sheet? And your instructions, it said put it in the new sheet. And you can name the sheet whatever you want, but you can keep the title that it says this will be Chart 1. because we're going to create two separate charts from the same data. So when we press OK, it fills the page, but you'll also notice your tabs have changed down here on the bottom. Sheet 1 is still the data that you put in, or actually your spreadsheet. Chart 1, which is the new tab that showed up, has your graph in it. You're also going to put a title on your graph, and the way that you do that is go to the Layout tab, and you'll notice it says Chart Title, Legend, Data Labels. This is your legend over here for your graph. But we're going to put a title, and I want the title, just in this case, be sure to check your instructions, but if it says to do it above the chart, you click on that choice, and then you type in the title, which was number of AMAs January through June. And I was specific as to the font and the color, and so you need to change the font, and the way you do that is always, if you want to manipulate anything, click on it. And then usually the easiest way, and I could go to Format tab, but I can right click and I can change the color. So you change it to the color specified, and I think I said change all of the text, and so it would include this text too. Come down here to your legend, do the same thing, but again, do it with the color specified. I think I'd also said, to move the legend, and to do that, again, click on it, and then hold your mouse down when the 4 arrows come up, and you can move it anywhere you want to on your page. Another thing that you can do is not only manipulate the text and what type of graph, the title, those types of things, you can manipulate anything within the graph. And again, just click on it. And so I think in your instructions I had said change one of the pieces of the pie graph to a specific color. Now notice when I click, notice all the little drag handles, it's really selected the whole graph. Well, if you want to change just one piece of the pie, click again inside that particular piece of the pie that you want to change, and go to Format, and then that would be, if I said change the color of it, that's the fill. So choose Fill, and then whatever color is specified on your instructions. So we can change the fill to any color, and we can also actually change the gradient, where it makes it go from dark to light, those types of things. So again, just remember, anything you want to change, click on it. But don't change the whole thing. For example, if you click on a piece of pie and you want to change the colors, be aware that initially it's going to highlight the whole surface of the pie, and that may not be what you want to change. So you go directly to what you want to change and click on it, and just make sure that that's the only thing highlighted. Then Format. Okay. Another thing we do on a pie graph, you're showing the percentage of a whole. So the pie represents all the occurrences, and then it's broken down. For example, it shows percentages, not specific numbers. And so you can see January, which is this color on the pie. You can go to your legend and see there, if I hold my mouse over it, I can see that 17% of the AMAs that occurred between January and June were in January. And remember, we just put in numbers. We didn't put in percentages, but that's what a pie graph does. You use it to show percentages. And so we hold our mouse over the other piece, another piece of the pie, it tells us in February 22 AMAs occurred, but it was 26% of all of the AMAs that occurred between January and June. So if I want that to actually show up so that people can see the actual value, you can just glance at this and see that the largest percentage of AMAs actually happened in June, which is represented in the yellow section. But if we want to show the actual values or the percentages, instead of just seeing it as a picture, we want them to appear, then we can actually go to layout again, and notice in the same place where we went to do the chart title, there is a selection here for data labels, and so we're labeling our data on our chart. So if we click on it, we can tell it where we want it. Do we want it in the center? Do we not want any labels? Put it the best place where it will fit, outside in, inside in. So I'm going to pick outside in, and notice what happened. The label just showed up because I had that piece of the pie selected, so it only showed up there. And so to get our data labels to show up everywhere, make sure you've selected the whole pie itself, or the whole graph, and then outside in, whoops, delete that. And then we can even go further. As long as we have that selected, notice our data is showing up here. These aren't percentages, these are the actual numbers as far as the number of AMAs per month. But if we can show both, and under more data label options, we can pick, do we want it to show the value itself? Do we want it to show percentage? Do we want it to show both? And you see when I picked that, it showed the value first and then the percentage after it. And so there's different things that we can show, or we don't have to show anything at all. Let's say on this example, I want to just show percentage. Now your instructions may say to show the values. If that's the case, then you can do it that way. And so I'm showing the actual percentages. Okay. So I think I've covered everything as far as manipulating and changing. You can change the font, you can change the color of the font, the size, everything as far as a pie graph. But also in your instructions you're told to do a bar or column graph also. And so what you do is, remember the tabs down here, you go back to your spreadsheet, which was on sheet 1. We go through the same process, insert, but this time we're inserting a column graph. And so then you go find your column graph, and again in the instructions I'll tell you which one to pick. And notice it immediately puts it within the chart, or within the spreadsheet, which may be what you want in some circumstances. But in other circumstances, you may want it on a separate sheet. So again, go by your instructions. I'll move this to a new sheet that's labeled Chart 2. And notice once I've done that, I can just go between them and go to Chart 1, Chart 2, and back to my spreadsheet. We're working on Chart 2. There are specifics. I think I told you to remove the legend, and in this case it just says Series 1. Remember, when you manipulate anything, you just click on it. Now, once it's selected, you can just hit your delete key and get rid of it. Also give you information on the fonts. And so, remember, just click on them. You're going to hear that in your sleep, aren't you? Just click on it. Just click on it. And then once you've selected it, right click. You can italicize it. You can bold it. You can change the font totally. You can change the color or the background. So there's many things that you can do. And so if I want to change the x-axis, I highlight it. I want to change the y-axis. The y-axis goes up and down. The x-axis goes right to left, or actually left to right. And so if this is highlighted, I do the same thing. Right click, and then I can change the size. Ooh, went crazy on that one. I don't want it that big. And so again, you just do as your instructions, but usually the rule, click on it, then right click on it. You click on it to select it, and then right click on it. And once you notice, when you click on it the first time, it'll select everything, for example, in the y-axis. But if you want to just change one value, you can actually just click on the value. And sometimes you have to play with it, and you can highlight certain things. And if you want to actually change a column, notice I clicked on a column and it selected all the columns, but maybe I just want to click on, I want to change one thing. And so once everything's highlighted, then I click on the column that I want to change. I can change the color in just one column. Now also, as far as your design, you can have chart styles. I'm specific as far as telling you what style to use. There's all different styles that you can use. So you can change the color just this way, or there are different styles. Notice that some of them are more 3D, some of them have black backgrounds, different colors. And so if you'll notice, when you hold your mouse, it will give you the number of the actual style. And so, for example, style 30 will give me purple 3D bars or columns on my graph. Okay, another thing that you can do, as I said, you can manipulate pretty much anything. And what if I wanted to turn just the plot area, this area behind the columns, a particular color? Well, click on the plot area. And notice when I held my mouse up there, it came up and said that you're in the plot area. So it selected it, and then I can go to Format, then my fill. If I want to change it, I'm going to be pretty bold here, and we can make it, ooh, that's hard. And that's another rule. If you're ever doing anything for display, and I say this, writing email, doing anything, whether it's electronically or just regular pen and paper, don't make it offensive to people. Now, some people would look at that and say, oh, that's cool, isn't it? Look at those bright, wonderful colors. Other people will say, ooh, that is just too much. I can't look at that very long. And so it's always better, and I've said this before in other labs, be subtle. A lot of times your best colors are just black and white, but then you can add some personality to it. Just don't go crazy. This is too much. And so you can test it out and see what colors you like. That's kind of dull looking, but I don't find that offensive as far as making my eyes strain or anything. So keep that in mind, because I've even received emails from people and students that it'll be a neon pink background with a neon green text or something, and I've had to actually change the settings on the computer sometime to actually make it out. So just be aware that your favorite colors are not necessarily other people's favorite colors, and vice versa. And so just try to keep things pretty subtle. Okay, same thing when we want to do a chart title. We go to our Layout tab, Chart Title. We can do a center overlay title, which will actually be partially on and off the plot area. We can do it above. There are more title options. You can have a gradient, meaning goes from dark to light, all different types of things. But If you put your chart title in, type in whatever your instructions say, and be specific, because when somebody's looking at a graph, they are just looking at a picture, and so they need to be able to look at it and say, oh, okay, if that means the number of AMAs per month. But if you didn't have a chart title, these months and these numbers are not going to mean anything. So you have to have your title be very specific as to, immediately let somebody know what they're looking at. So, and I'm not going to complete this. Again, you do it per your instructions. So when we go, remember we can go from chart 1 to chart 2, and the sheets are always where the actual data are located. When we go to save, file, save as, and then we're going to save it, whether in My Documents, that's where most of you will save things. Then you name your file as instructed. And when you save it, and I'm going to go back and open it, I just want to show you that it saved everything. It saved our spreadsheet, it saved our chart 1 and our chart 2. And so many times, the reason I'm pointing this out is many times people who use this for the first time and aren't used to navigating through the different sheets on the spreadsheet will say, oh, I lost mine. I don't know where it is. When I brought it up, the only thing on there was my data, or were my data. And so just doing this to show you they're not lost. You just look under the various tabs.